Good afternoon and welcome back. Today we're hosting a live stream YouTube for the Fort Macleod Safe Communities Task Force. This is a commitment the town has made since last year in partnership with the RCMP and SCAN, and of course some of our town staff. Before we get started, I'd like to do some welcome and introductions, and we'll start to my far left with you, Wes, please.
Hello, my name is Wes. I'm the bylaw officer at the town of Fort Macleod, and I'll be talking about the new dog control bylaw today.
My name is Lisa Gillingham, and I'm the Director of Community and Protective Services for the town of Fort Macleod, and I'll be briefly discussing the recent survey that was put out by the CPAC, or the Crime Prevention Advisory Committee, along with Sergeant Muha.
Hello, my name is Constable Ben Stubby. I'm with the Fort Macleod RCMP, and I'll be talking about the new Provincial Administrative Penalties Act, which is in regards to the new impaired driving laws.
I am Sergeant Brian Muha, the detachment commander of Fort Macleod Detachment. I'm going to talk about a few things related to overall statistics or crime trends for Fort Macleod, and a little bit about some of the feedback we've been getting from the public and from our various other conversations with council and such. So we'll present on that.
Hi, I'm Glenn Stewart. I'm with SCAN, and we'll be doing a short update on what we've been up to.
Good afternoon. My name is Chris Fitzsimmons, also with Alberta Sheriff SCAN, and I'll be taking kind of over the Fort Macleod portfolio when Glenn retires, so hear more today just to observe.
Thank you all, and I'd like to welcome the panel for attending. My name is Sue Keenan. I'm the CAO here in the town of Fort Macleod. We're going to start off with an update on what's happening with the task force. I'd like to start by again expressing my gratitude and thanks to all of our residents and business members throughout the community. We continue to appreciate the phone calls and tips all of us do, whether it's the RCMP or SCAN or myself or Wes. We have been making some progress. I'd like to say it's significant progress, but it's definitely been a slow process. And honestly, and I've said this before and I'll keep saying it, we couldn't do it without the community rallying around and continuing to support the efforts of all of the partner organizations. So for that, I want to thank everybody in the community. Secondly, and moving forward, we think we need to shine more of a spotlight on what's happening out there, specifically with properties that are under the jurisdiction right now of the town of Fort Macleod, or that we have some problems with. So I'm going to be specific today in addresses and tell you where we are with certain properties and whether we have proceeded with court action or if court action is pending. So just bear with me a second while I pull up my list here. Of course, I'm not going to name property owners and or tenants, but I am going to list the addresses, indicate to the community that if you see anything out and about in the community that causes you any concern, please don't hesitate to call any one of the partnering groups. First property I'm going to touch on is 149 22nd Street. We have commenced court proceedings for cleanup on this particular property. Again, I will indicate that it is a very slow process, and there are definitely properties out there that are absolutely horrendous in terms of the garbage and the junk that is building up. So Wes has taken some significant steps to get all of the paperwork, and I will say there's a lot of paperwork to do with these. So that one is before the court. Well, it is before the court. So hopefully we'll get some responses and get an order from the courts to go in and clean up that property, and that bill and the legal fees will go back to the owner. And again, that's 149 22nd Street. Some celebratory news to celebrate. 218 11th Street. The landlord has been for a significant amount of time attempting to evict the tenants after receiving court orders. Um, Those court orders were signed off. The tenants on that property at 218th 11th Street have now been evicted. So again, if anybody sees anything that's happening around that particular property, please do let us know. That would be great. The next property I'm going to address is 348 11th Street. Just so people are aware, a 546 order has been served on that property owner, which expires on April the 28th. If there's no remedy to that situation, and again, it's one of those properties that is full of junk. We keep going out and doors are open and we know it's a problem. So if the owner does not clean up that property by April the 28th, then we will be proceeding with court proceedings. And we hope to have, we've got a bit of a process down now, so we hope that that one will be dealt with quickly and effectively. 327 11th Street has been identified as an unsightly property. Again, this is probably one of the worst in the town of Fort Macleod. We've already been out there once. We've cleaned up that property. We've charged that cost as well as the legal fees back to the property owner. We will be implementing court proceedings as well on that for a second time in less than a year. And we're hoping that we will be able to get a little more action and approvals from the judge to do a few more things out there besides going in and keep cleaning up properties and the garbage that exists. 336 10th Street. Some of you might recognize that as the blue house that was raided by the RCMP, for lack of better terminology, last year. Just wanted to let you know we have been working diligently on that file. Unfortunately for us, it's under the bank's control, and now they have to jump through the hoops. But we have asked our legal counsel to put some pressure on the bank to get that property cleaned up as soon as they can. It's, like I said, it's been over a year, and I know that's a long time to wait, and we do appreciate all of the patience from the residents down on 10th Street. Finally, the last address I'm going to identify is 325 8th Street. That landowner has been given an extension to meet the requirements of the court order. As far as I know, that has not been done to the satisfaction of our bylaw officer. So come June, I think it's June the 1st, we will be executing the order, which is demolition of that property. So in terms of the properties that we're focused on right now, those are them. I will say, though, that with all of the help of our partners, we have been keeping an eye out on things around town. And I will say, on a personal note, there is crime still happening in this community. We haven't been able to shy away from that or get away from that. We just ask our residents to be cautious and vigilant. And, you know, if you're aware of a situation out there that's not safe, we'd appreciate that heads up. If you're aware of any properties that need attention, we'd also appreciate that heads up. We're doing the best we can with the resources that we have at our disposal, but it doesn't always happen in the time frame that we'd like it to. So I do want to recognize all of the members of the actual Fort Macleod Safe Communities Task Force. We have a couple of partners that don't typically sit at this table. Robert Rippon from Alberta Health Services and Nicole from Park Enterprises, who do our inspections. By bringing all the stakeholders together, we've been definitely able to do more collectively and collaboratively together with great success when we actually get all the court orders in place. So I just encourage residents one more time to stay in touch with us. Please keep us advised if things are happening out there, and to give you assurances that the town of Fort Macleod and our partnering groups are working diligently to address your concerns as quickly and as effectively as we can. So that being said, I know we've also had some aggressive dog issues in the town of Fort Macleod recently, much to my dismay. And I'm going to ask our bylaw officer, Wes Noble, to bring you up to speed on that bylaw. So Wes?
Hello, everyone. I'm going to talk about aggressive dogs, but before I do that, I'd just like to remind people that if you do see any dog running at large, to please try and report it to the town office. If it's after hours, then call the RCMP office number. When it comes to our new 1922 dog control bylaw, there's quite a bit that's actually been added to it, but one of the biggest things right now is we now have the ability, well, the CAO has the ability to deem a dog aggressive through written notice. And when a person receives this aggressive dog notice, this increases the conditions that the dog's owners must comply with, or they may face possible increased fines. They do get 14 days to review this notice, and that's reviewed by town council if they choose to go that way. So if a dog is declared aggressive, some of the conditions that have been added to our bylaw, I'll just list them off. Number one, we have a liability insurance. It must be obtained and maintained by the owner. Number two, an aggressive dog license must be acquired, and that can only be acquired after they have proof of the liability insurance. Number three, the dog must be muzzled, leashed, and with a person over the age of 18 when off the property. Number four, when on the owner's property, the dog must be in a secure enclosure or within the residence of the owner. Number five, the owner must notify Bylaw or RCMP if the aggressive dog is at large. And number six, they must provide formal notification if the dog is sold or gifted or transferred. And they'd provide notification to the town. So, as I said before, there's extra conditions now with the aggressive dog letters. And if you have any other questions, you can call the town office, and I'll try to get back to you as quick as I can.
Thank you, Wes. Lisa, Community Standards Bylaw, and CPAC Survey Overview.
I'm going to address the survey and just kind of advise people to the intent of the committee for asking for that information. When we sit down as the Crime Prevention Advisory Committee, there are several members around the table, and we try and come up with strategies to help address crime or educate residents on matters of crime and how to protect themselves and their property. So the intent of the CPAC survey was to gather feedback from both town and MD residents on the perception of the effectiveness within the community and the MD catchment of both the RCMP and our bylaw enforcement, and gather some additional thoughts on possible education topics. We received approximately 142 responses to that survey, which is actually a pretty decent number for our size of community. So we want to thank everybody for participating in that and providing us with their thoughts. Some of the feedback that we got regarding the community concerns on crime, Sergeant Muha will be addressing those as it gets around to him. But we also received some great suggestions for education and information opportunities. And some of those top ones that I'll just speak to are drugs and preventing drug dealers in your community and how to report actions, property owner rights and how to protect your property, as well as updates on current bylaws within our community. And then Rural Crime Watch and prevention was one that people suggested that we could provide some additional education on. So we will do our best as a committee to get some information and share it via our Facebook page, including the town's Facebook page and the Rural Crime Watch Facebook page. And we'll do our best to provide that information over the course of the next year, probably, because there was a lot of topics suggested. And lastly, I just want to address question number 4 of the survey, which was rating on a scale of 1 to 5 the current level of service and effectiveness in the 3 sectors of enforcement. I'm going to touch briefly on the bylaw enforcement effectiveness and just try and shed a little light on the perception of that. And in case people were feeling that our bylaw enforcement wasn't effective, in the last quarter, 177 files were opened and initiated by our bylaw enforcement officer. And they are currently in various states of administrative function, and several of them do require court orders and additional measures that go beyond just the town's ability to enforce immediately. It does take some time, as our CAO Sue mentioned earlier, for them to move through this process. So we do ask people to be patient, and just because there isn't immediate action, it doesn't mean that there isn't any action happening. So we do have a busy bylaw enforcement officer, and we do appreciate all the work that he's done. So again, we'll do our best to address some of the education requests over the next little bit here. And please, if you have any comments, concerns, or anything, contact the town. If we don't know what's happening out there, we can't necessarily address it. So again, just reach out to us and let us know. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Constable Ben Stubby.
Hello, I'm going to touch briefly on the new Provincial Administrative Penalties Act, which is it is a impaired driving law. So there's two streams that I want to talk to you about, and that is the criminal impaired driving law, which is still on the books and still very much very valid. And secondly is the new provincial sanctions. So basically what the province has done is they followed BC's way of thinking, and they've been doing this for quite a while, over a decade, and with very good results. So instead of it gives police the ability to lay a provincial charge versus a criminal charge, and these are sanctions that can be imposed upon impaired driving, and it saves a bit of time and in the court system, as well as addresses impaired driving in a way that's outside of the criminal code. The first page here is it's kind of a quick overview of the immediate roadside sanctions program. So it was introduced a little over a year ago, December 1st, 2020, and provides a just over a few months ago, fairly new program. It provides a comprehensive array of serious, immediate, and escalating consequences for impaired drivers. So basically, it's a system that has been proven to reduce impaired driving significantly in other jurisdictions. And the consequences for drivers will include a driver's license suspension, new fines, vehicle seizures, mandatory education, and participation in the Ignition Interlock program. So basically, it's a few of the consequences under this new immediate roadside sanctions program will include a driver's license suspension, fines of up to $2,000, increased length of vehicle seizures up to 30 days. Education programs for repeat offenders, and participation in the Ignition Interlock program. And some of the benefits of the program is, in addition to saving lives and preventing some needless injury, these new measures are expected to benefit Albertans in several other ways. Again, we talked about freeing up some of the court time, and also eliminating approximately 1,200 complex, full, or multi-day trials. So with the criminal code, it inevitably goes, most of them go to criminal code to trial, and that takes a lot of time and also money, and also time for the accused and the victims. So it also frees up about 30,000 hours of police time, ensuring that the police are protecting Albertans and their communities are on the streets. This has been sanctioned by MAD Canada. They welcome the new laws and sanctions. These streamlined administrative options for certain offenders have proven very effective in reducing impaired driving and saving lives in other provinces. So MAD fully supports these new measures, and is on board with this. So some of the positive impacts of this is, if we compare this to British Columbia, they have seen a significant drop in impaired driving incidences rates from 2011 to 2018. and a 54, which is very significant and very encouraging, is a 54% drop in the number of impaired driving fatalities between 2010 and 2018. So that speaks volumes. When we look at the statistics about impaired driving fatalities in Canada, it's very, very high and very, very devastating to the community. And usually it's the victims are innocent bystanders, or people are just driving their vehicles, and have nothing to do with the original drinking and driving. So again, 8% reduction in hospital admissions, even a modest decrease in emergency visits saves millions of dollars in a critical capacity. So this frees up money that can be used for other programs and other people that need it. It also reduces the amount so there's a median elapsed time. So basically what that means is the amount of time that it takes to go through the court system. So it's very beneficial that way too. And of course, just one back. Ultimately, it's making roads safer. So that's our ultimate goal, is to make Albertans' drives safer. And so basically quick overview of the immediate roadside sanctions is when the police have reasonable and probable grounds to believe a driver has committed an impaired offense, the driver will be issued an administrative penalty called the IRS fail. And the driver will receive immediate 15-month driver's license suspension and also receives a 30-day vehicle seizure. For the first offense, they'll be issued a $1,000 fine, and they'll be required to complete mandatory impaired driving education. If there's a repeat offender or there's bodily harm or injury, they will also receive an escalating administrative penalty and will be charged with a criminal offense. So the immediate roadside sanctions go hand in hand with the criminal code. So even though it's a provincial sanction, if there's other circumstances like a motor vehicle collision that's caused bodily harm or injury to someone else, or if the offender just has been charged multiple times and just doesn't get it, there is always the criminal code way of processing and progressing a driver that has repeatedly not followed the rules. And also there's some escalating harsher sanctions that are issued as well for repeat offenders provincially, as well as the ability to go with the criminal route as well. And a driver can drive after 3 months if they install ignition interlock device, and if the driver does not participate in that, so that's basically what people call a blow box, right? So ignition interlock device, and if they do not choose to participate in that, they will remain suspended for the whole term, and with no ability to drive for the whole suspension term. So, and this process generally takes from the time of the stop to the driver being finished being processed and handed the documents, usually about an hour, 45 minutes to an hour. So basically, as the impact goes up, not just money-wise, but also injury-wise and such. So adverse effect, loss, or damage unexpected, the contraventions become stiffer. So again, first offense, it's not as impactful, but if it continues on, then it becomes more of an issue. So again, going back to what I previously stated is our main goal is to keep impaired drivers off the road and keep Albertans safer and our roads safer for everyone to travel on. Thank you.
Thank you, Constable Stubby. Sergeant Brian Muha, crime trends.
Great, thank you. I just want to thank everybody who's taking a part of this live for listening in. We also will be posting this after the fact, so if people who haven't seen it or want to review it, they can do so on the YouTube channel. But RCMP detachment right now, pretty much detachments across the country, we're all engaged in community consultation at this point, and have been for several months. The biggest thing that we're trying to do is understand and get to the nitty-gritty of what's going on in our communities. In the past, there were times when we would simply refer to or meet with council, or we might meet with a group here or an interest group there. But now we're really reaching out into the public sphere in order to get and try to capture all of the information that we can. So again, when Lisa is just talking about the reason for the CPAC survey going out, that is part of that as to what can the CPAC do to help the community as an interest group, but also what can we discover from the community that become priorities for the RCMP and our policing, as well as for the town and potentially for Bylaw for their law enforcement activities. So the list that came back to us, or the information that came back to us, was of interest. The community concerns tie pretty much directly with the crime trends and statistics that we've had over the past few years. And so I just wanted to talk about the top 5 issues that were brought to our attention through the survey. And I don't think too many people are going to think this is out of earth here, but generally the first one that came back was drugs is the biggest issue in our community. And then the second one, which is an underlying factor for the drugs, is theft. So those two go very closely hand in hand. The third highest on the list for feedback from the public was break and enters. So again, a property crimes related issue. The fourth one that came back is an aggressive dogs, stray dogs act issue, which Wes has already spoken about. And then the fourth one was interesting to me because it's one that isn't really measurable by statistics or by crime trend statistics, and that is the feeling of personal and community safety. And so that has come back as pretty high on the list. And so as far as the RCMP goes, I relate that closely with some other points that I see further down on the list, and they include night patrols, police visibility, officer presence, police response times, RCMP staffing levels, and availability. And so all of those are very important to us. We have been, over the past couple of years, discussing extensively with my line, trying to bring more people into the community as far as the RCMP detachment goes. And we've had some luck informally. We've had some extra people working in the office that generally wouldn't be here. We've had additional, what we call surplus to establishment, additional officers here working over the past couple of years, so that's been fantastic. But it doesn't really solve our long-term human resource possibility. We do have a high workload here in Fort Macleod. There's no shortage of work here. And so the enforcement piece is something that we're trying to keep on top of. Our officers and our supervisors are really trying to make sure that we're following through on our investigations as best we can. And, and that's all related to the things that are reported from the public. So, again, if the public can ensure that they continue to send in their calls for service, suspicious vehicles, suspicious people, weird odd hour activity, those need to continue coming in, just at least so we know about it. And going back again to Lisa's comment, if we don't know about it, we really aren't going to be able to do anything about it. If we do know about it, there is something potentially that we can do, whether that's changing up our business practices at the office or maybe potentially seeking more human resources again. So that's kind of on the enforcement side and building a plan for this new year. And again, the most important thing is reaching out and having that consultation with everybody so we have a wholesome picture of what's going on out there. From the education side, we are moving forward with, I believe, a tip of the week, which we may be able to cover off some other issues on this list, such as mental illness and addictions, maybe some youth mentoring or crime rehabilitation, children's safety, school zone safety, crime watch community or building a crime watch community, domestic violence, and protecting property, crime prevention through environmental design, all of these things, racism or discrimination. There's a few of them on the list here that we can certainly address as we go through the year. But again, really the end purpose of this for me is to ensure that if people are watching and they have something they need to address or want addressed here, to put that in either through this forum or potentially to call our office and discuss it with our personnel. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Next up is Glenn Stewart from SCAN.
Thank you. We too are busy in Fort Macleod. We haven't been able to get here much recently, and that's because it's so busy everywhere. We have a couple of active files, although I won't be sharing the address like Sue did. We also were involved in 218 11th Street. That file's been going on most of a year, I think. It's taken quite a while, longer than it normally does. The tenants refused to leave, of course, and so the courts were involved, and that always takes up a lot of time, especially when there's COVID. The owner has been very cooperative, and that's nice. Like Chris mentioned, this will be my last meeting. I'm going to call it a day. And I'd like to take this opportunity to thank everybody on this task force, and especially you, Sue, for putting it together and working so hard. And she's worked very hard on this task force, and we're seeing the results of that. And I'm proud to be part of that. Chris Fitzsimmons will be taking over. If anybody's seeing activity in their neighborhood that they think might be drug activity, you can call the RCMP or you can call us directly. Our number is 1-866-960-7228. Sorry, 7226. That's why I got to leave. I'm old. So if you have any suspicions, please feel free to call us, and we'd love to come out and have a look at it. Thanks again.
Thanks, Glenn. Just a couple of final comments that I'd like to make. Just as a bit of some preliminary notice, the Town of Fort Macleod administration is currently working on and having some preliminary conversations with our planners as well as council with respect to the rezoning of 10th and 11th Street from residential manufactured homes to residential. We are going to continue down that road. The plan is to have public engagement meetings with the residents on 10th and 11th Street from 1st Ave right up till, I think it's 7th or 8th Ave. A couple things before anybody panics. Residential manufactured homes would be grandfathered in this proposal. And in addition to that, every homeowner on 10th and 11th will be receiving in the next few weeks a letter from myself and our planning people with respect to what this is going to mean, what the impacts will be, and there will be lots of opportunity for dialogue. I want to reemphasize again, we're having very preliminary discussions with council on this right now, but it's a definitely the way I believe we should be going in order to clean up some of the tougher areas of town and to really focus on the beautification piece and the safe community piece within the strategic plan. If any residents have any questions or comments about that, please don't hesitate to give me a call. And again, I just want to reemphasize, they're preliminary discussions, nothing has been finalized, and every resident will be involved in those future discussions. Besides that, I also want to really acknowledge today the role of SCAN. Glenn and his team, and Chris is going to be the new leader of that team, have been wonderful to work with. They've kept us in the loop. A lot of times when you're dealing with some of these matters, there's a lot of confidentiality that comes with that. They've been in this community now on and off for the last year. We wouldn't have the success, and I think I can say this on behalf of Brian and the RCMP too, we wouldn't have the success we currently have and be where we're at right now if it wasn't for the involvement of SCAN and all the other partnering organizations on the task force. So that being said, I want to just take 1 minute to acknowledge Glenn's retirement. We met on an airplane a few years ago, and we had a lot of common things to talk about. So he's been a great addition. And on behalf of the town of Fort Macleod, my council, my staff, Wes and myself in particular, just a little token of our appreciation for you being involved. So that's for you. And finally, just again, I want to reaffirm with our residents that council is very committed. Our council is very committed to a safer community here in the town of Fort Macleod. They've been very supportive of the task force. I also want to reaffirm that whenever the town is spending money right now on these cleanup initiatives and getting things done, those costs are being tagged back on to the tax roll, and those property owners are going to be charged the full amount for that recovery of those costs. And if they can't pay it, then of course we take over the property and put it up for auction. So really important to remember those two things. We're trying to be as effective and efficient as we can. I want to thank all residents again for your commitment and patience. Our panel, we're going to be continuing to work hard over this next year and a half. We knew this was going to be a 2-year process coming into it. It might be a little bit longer, but we'll see how it goes. And finally, on a personal note, I would like to recognize there have been a huge amount of challenges for everyone with regard to COVID and the impacts that it's had on all of our lives. The sun is out, spring is here, summer is coming. Get outside, stay active and stay healthy. And again, if you have any comments or have any questions, any one of us here on the panel are more than happy to take those questions. So thank you very much for joining us today, and have a wonderful afternoon.